to put on a jersey that says USA across it. Angel Reese stinks. Angel Reese missed about 8 layups in the first quarter. Coming into this game, Angel Reese, the last 3 games.
The debate was supposed to be close, a dead heat race for the history books between 2 dynamic superstars who took the sports world by storm. But what went down on the court completely shattered that illusion in a single night. When Caitlin Clark stepped onto the hardwood against the Atlanta Dream, everyone knew she was capable of magic. But nobody expected the absolute masterclass she was about to put on display, dropping 26 points, pulling up from deep parking lot range, and tearing apart every single defensive scheme Atlanta threw at her with surgeon-like precision. Meanwhile, across the slate, Angel Reese found herself caught in the middle of a basketball nightmare that instantly went viral for all the wrong reasons, struggling around the rim to an extent that left fans, analysts, and even her most loyal supporters completely speechless. 8 missed layups in a single contest, back-to-back point-blank misses off the glass, and a performance that lit the internet on fire with brutal commentary and unending highlight reels showcasing the stark difference in efficiency between these 2 rookie icons. It was the kind of night that changes narratives forever. A moment where the stat sheets and the eye test finally aligned to reveal who was truly controlling the tempo of the game and who was crumbling under the massive weight of unprecedented expectations. The Atlanta Dream thought they had a blueprint to stop Indiana's phenom, planning to trap her on high pick-and-rolls and force her into frantic turnovers early in the possession. But Caitlin Clark treated their defense like a practice scrimmage from the very first whistle. She pulled up from 40 feet out without hesitation, snapping the net and sending the packed arena into an absolute frenzy before the defenders could even raise their hands to contest the shot. Every time Atlanta tried to adjust by stepping up higher on the perimeter, Clark used her elite court vision to thread needle-passing laser beams straight through the paint, setting up her teammates for effortless layups and wide-open rhythm jumpers. She finished the night with 26 massive points, pouring in dagger after dagger whenever the Dream made a minor run, proving that her transition to the pro level wasn't just complete, but that she was actively redefining how defenses have to prepare for women's basketball. The speed at which she executed decisions left the Atlanta coaching staff visibly frustrated on the sidelines, throwing their hands up in despair as Clark pulled off step-back jumpers that looked straight out of a video game. But while Clark was turning the court into her personal highlight reel, the rest of the league was watching a completely different drama unfold elsewhere. Over in Chicago's matchup, Angel Reese was facing an uphill battle against a defense that refused to give her easy second-chance opportunities, leading to one of the most agonizing offensive stretches seen all season. Reese has made a name for herself as a rebounding machine, building a massive stat line around double-doubles. But on this particular night, the rim seemed to have a lid on it that she simply could not remove. Time after time, she fought for position down low, gathered the ball beneath the basket, and attempted to go up strong, only for the ball to roll off the iron, jump off the backboard, or bounce completely wide. What made it so painful to watch was the compounding nature of the misses, where she would grab her own offensive rebound only to miss the follow-up contested layup once again, repeating the cycle in front of an increasingly shocked crowd. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the box score confirmed the ugly truth, documenting 8 missed layups that were mostly taken right in the heart of the paint. Social media did not hold back for a single second, as sports accounts across every platform began clipping the sequence of repeated point-blank misses, labeling the performance as an absolute humiliation on the national stage. The internet instantly erupted into a war zone of hot takes, memes, and relentless comparisons between Clark's 26-point masterclass and Reese's rimside nightmare. Critics who had been waiting for an opportunity to call out Reese's shooting efficiency jumped on the chance, arguing that her high rebound numbers were heavily inflated by picking up her own missed shots from inches away. On the flip side, Reese's defender base scrambled to protect her reputation, pointing out her elite defensive effort, her motor, and her continuous grit in battling against much taller and more experienced centers inside the paint. But the court of public opinion had already made up its mind for the night, with video compilations comparing Clark's smooth, high-arch swishes from the logo directly against Reese's clumsy rim finishes, garnering millions of views in a matter of hours. Commentators on major sports networks couldn't ignore the stark contrast either, openly questioning whether the Rookie of the Year race was ever really a debate to begin with, or just a narrative pushed by television media to keep viewership numbers high throughout the summer. And while the fan bases traded insults in the comment sections, an even deeper conflict was brewing behind the scenes within the league itself. The dynamic between veteran players and these spotlight-grabbing rookies has been tense all year long, filled with hard fouls, passive-aggressive press conference comments, and unwritten rules being enforced on the floor. For months, veterans had claimed that the media hype surrounding Clark was overblown, and that she would face a rude awakening once real physical defenses dialed in on her every move. But nights like her 26-point execution against Atlanta began silencing even her most stubborn critics, showing that physical play only pushed her to adapt faster, release her shot quicker, and punish defenders from deeper ranges. Meanwhile, the harsh spotlight on Reese highlighted the brutal truth that hype only carries you so far if your technical fundamentals down in the post don't hold up under professional scouting reports. Teams had clearly cracked the code on Reese's offensive tendencies, playing off her on the perimeter, packing the paint with length, and forcing her to make tough touch shots over multiple arms instead of giving up simple power moves. This structural adjustment by opposing coaches exposed a glaring gap in her offensive game that couldn't be masked by passion or viral personality alone. Behind closed doors, the conversation wasn't just about single-game stats or viral clips, but about the overwhelming pressure that both of these young athletes are forced to carry every single night they step onto the hardwood. Caitlin Clark walked into a league where every single arena she visits sells out completely, with thousands of fans wearing her jersey and watching her every movement, expecting her to drop 30 points and 10 assists without missing a beat. The psychological toll of having no off nights, where a single bad shooting performance leads to endless headlines and media debate, is something very few rookies in sports history have ever had to navigate. On the other side, Angel Reese built her entire brand on confidence, swagger, and unbothered attitude, making her an easy target for online trolls the second her performance dipped below expectations. Having 8 missed layups replay continuously on every social feed while being mocked by millions of people is a mental test that can break a player's confidence for weeks, making them second-guess every single touch near the rim moving forward. But as the noise reached a deafening level online, both players had no choice but to suit up and face the music for their next games. When asked about her incredible performance against Atlanta, Caitlin Clark kept her response characteristically brief and focused on team momentum, refusing to gloat or take victory laps over her personal scoring line. She emphasized that her main goal was simply securing a playoff spot for the Indiana Fever, brushing off questions about individual rivalry or the viral noise surrounding other games across the league. That level of focus is precisely why her game has continued to elevate week after week, transitioning her from a hyped college prospect into a legitimate primary playmaker who commands respect from every defense in North America. Her ability to tune out the endless debate shows a maturity that matches her on-court vision, allowing her to stay composed even when defenders try to push her around or bait her into technical fouls. But while Clark took the high road, the media engine surrounding her continued to churn, breaking down every stat line, every passing angle, and every defensive mistake made by her opponents in painstaking detail. For Angel Reese, the aftermath of that nightmare performance required a very different approach, forcing her to confront the heavy criticism head-on while trying to maintain her swagger on the court. In post-game interviews, she insisted that shots simply weren't falling, and that every great rebounder goes through tough offensive stretches, emphasizing that her energy on the glass and defensive presence still provided value to her team. But stats don't lie, and analysts quickly pointed out that her field goal percentage inside 3 feet had dropped to concerning levels for a starting front-court player in the modern professional era. The narrative surrounding her double-double streak began to shift from an impressive record of consistency to a controversial debate about whether empty stats were being prioritized over efficient, team-first basketball. Every missed layup seemed to amplify the whispers that her offensive game lacked the fundamental polishing needed to lead a franchise to deep playoff runs, without elite perimeter shooting around her. And yet, despite the harsh backlash, Reese refused to alter her play style, continuing to crash the glass with relentless energy, even if the ball refused to drop through the net. The rivalry between Clark and Reese didn't start in the pro ranks, but this specific night added a brand new layer of dramatic tension that guaranteed their next head-to-head matchup would break all previous television ratings records. Fans had divided themselves into 2 distinct camps: those who saw Clark as a generational basketball talent, revolutionizing the sport through skill, range, and court awareness, and those who championed Reese as a powerhouse competitor, bringing unfiltered reality, physical presence, and culture to the game. When one thrives while the other stumbles so visibly, the balance of power in that cultural rivalry shifts drastically, giving one side endless ammunition while leaving the other scrambling to defend their hero. Social media platforms were inundated with video breakdowns analyzing Reese's footwork down low, contrasting it with video tutorials showing how Clark uses acceleration and hips to create wide-open space against elite perimeter defenders. It became more than just a debate about 2 rookies. It turned into a full-scale war over what style of basketball represents the true future of the NBA. The financial and promotional impact of this ongoing rivalry cannot be understated, as arena ticket prices for any game involving either player skyrocketed to levels normally reserved for the NBA Finals. Broadcasters adjusted their schedules dynamically to make sure Clark's games were featured during prime-time slots, capitalizing on the massive influx of new viewers who tuned in specifically to see if she would drop another 20-plus point masterpiece from deep range. Every deep three-pointer she hit against Atlanta was replayed on loop during morning sports talk shows, driving engagement through the roof and cementing her status as the ultimate box office draw in women's sports history. Meanwhile, Reese's dramatic night served as prime content for debate shows that fed on controversy, hot takes, and polarizing arguments, proving that win or lose, shine or struggle, these 2 players drive the entire conversation of the sport. But behind the glitz, glamour, and massive television deals, the reality on the hardwood remains brutal, cold, and unforgiving to anyone who lets their guard down for a single possession. As the regular season moved into its final critical stretch, the performance against the Atlanta Dream acted as a major turning point for the Indiana Fever's entire trajectory. Clark's 26-point masterclass didn't just look pretty on a highlight reel. It catalyzed her team into a cohesive unit that believed they could beat any squad in the league on any given night. Her teammates began cutting harder to the basket, trusting that if they got open for a split second, Clark would deliver a blind pass right into their hands for an easy 2 points. The dynamic of the team completely shifted from a rebuilding franchise trying to find an identity into a dangerous postseason dark horse that nobody wanted to face in a short playoff series. The energy in Indiana was electric, with home crowds roaring at every single logo shot and transition pass, creating an atmosphere that felt more like a college game day than a quiet professional arena. Clark had successfully taken the weight of an entire franchise on her shoulders and turned it into momentum that terrified defensive coordinators across the country. Conversely, the night of 8 missed layups served as a severe reality check for Chicago, exposing fundamental flaws in their half-court offense that couldn't be ignored any longer. Opposing teams immediately began adopting the exact same defensive strategy, packing the lane with multiple defenders, daring Reese to finish tough shots over length, and daring her teammates to beat them from the outside. The lack of floor spacing severely limited Reese's ability to operate cleanly in the post, turning every offensive possession into a grueling physical battle, where points were brutally hard to come by. The frustration on the floor was palpable, with visible body language signaling that the non-stop media scrutiny and offensive struggles were starting to wear down the team's overall chemistry. It proved that while social media clout and endorsement deals can be built overnight, building a consistent, high-efficiency game at the highest level of professional basketball requires constant refinement, mechanical adjustments, and relentless work behind closed doors, away from the cameras. What many casual viewers fail to realize is that basketball at this level is a game of microscopic margins, where a slight adjustment in foot placement or release angle can be the difference between a clean swish and an embarrassing miss off the front rim. Clark's shooting mechanics have been fine-tuned over years of high-volume repetition, allowing her to maintain the exact same smooth release whether she's shooting off the catch, off the dribble, or pulling up from 40 feet away while fading backward. That mechanical consistency is why she could put up 26 points against Atlanta, despite facing constant double teams and physical bump coverage off the ball. On the other hand, Reese's post mechanics often rely heavily on pure athletic power and quick second jumps, rather than polished footwork or soft touch around the basket. When she faces centers who match her athleticism and height, those technical flaws are exposed instantly, leading to chaotic wild attempts at the rim that result in 0 points and embarrassing viral clips. The reaction from former basketball legends and Hall of Famers offered a fascinating perspective on the situation, with many coming forward to offer constructiveness amidst the tidal wave of internet hate. Legendary scorers pointed out that every young player faces a brutal game where nothing goes right, emphasizing that how Reese responds to this public humiliation will define the rest of her professional career. They noted that even the greatest players in history have had nights where they missed continuous point-blank shots. But the key is learning how to impact the game in other ways without getting mentally broken by the immediate backlash. At the same time, legends showered Clark with immense praise, comparing her court vision and shooting gravity to all-time greats who transformed the sport through pure offensive gravity and skill. The consensus was clear. Clark wasn't just having a great rookie season. She was setting a brand new standard for what a guard can accomplish in modern basketball. As highlight clips of Clark's 26-point demolition of Atlanta continued to gather millions of views, secondary stories began to emerge about the sheer economic power she brings to every city she visits. Local businesses near arenas reported massive spikes in revenue whenever Indiana came to town, with merchandise stands selling out of #22 jerseys within minutes of doors opening to the public. Opposing teams were forced to move their home games to larger NBA venues just to accommodate the tens of thousands of fans desperate to see Clark live in person, creating an unprecedented financial windfall for the entire league structure. This economic boom created an interesting dynamic where even players who harbored professional jealousy toward Clark had to admit that her presence was directly increasing their own charter flights, visibility, and future earning potential. The hype wasn't just hot air created by TV executives. It was backed up by cold, hard cash, packed stadiums, and record-breaking television ratings that shattered every previous metric in women's sports history. Yet, despite the monetary success and national praise, the intense pressure on Clark never subsides for even a single day, as critics constantly move the goalposts on what she needs to accomplish to